Hey everyone, welcome to sunny Spain. I'm here with Marina and we fished a couple of days for trout on these beautiful rivers here, and we used a certain technique. You can call it Euro nymphing or Spanish nymphing or whatever, but you need some certain gear to practice that technique. Marina, maybe you explain to us what you use here.
I'm using a 10-foot 2-weight line. Don't be alarmed by the lightweight rods when you're nymphing, because they're built slightly differently. They're very strong in the rod butt section, and a 2-3-weight line is perfect for most rivers. And also the length of the rod can go up to 11 foot.
Exactly, yes.
And so there's a range between sort of 10 to 11 foot.
Exactly. So it depends a little bit on the river that you are fishing. If it's a smaller one, bring a 10 foot. If it's a big one, maybe an 11 foot, gives you some more distance and control. Okay, let's go through some other parts of your setup. What about the reel? It looks kind of big for a light rod like this one here. What did you bring and how do you choose a proper reel for Euro nymphing?
The first thing I learnt about the reel is that it's best to have a close cage. So what that means is that your thin line won't be getting stuck between the spool and the cage. The other thing is you want a little bit of weight so that it counterbalances the lightweight rod. So you can easily check that by holding here and making sure that it doesn't tip. So as you can see, that's a pretty nice balanced setup.
So you guys don't actually look just on the numbers on the reels. Yeah, the line class is not important. It's all about the actual weight. And it's better if it drops a little bit in the end, then it tips to the front, because it's less fatigue if you fish all day long with a slightly heavier reel. And as you said, a closed frame is a nice add-on because there's not the danger that the thin line gets damaged. But if you have a high quality, first class fly reel, normally that shouldn't be a problem if it's not a closed frame.
Yeah.
Okay, we have our rod, we have our reel, so what comes next is obviously the line. And we are not using a classic fly line, but we are using a certain kind of Euro nymph leader. Marina, what is important about the leader material?
So we are using a straight diameter mono. It comes in 0.16 millimeters diameter to 0.25. If you're a beginner, the thicker millimeter diameter is better because it's easier to cast. And this mono is stiffer and it has less stretch. So you're not gonna be changing it all day.
Exactly, and you feel also the takes a little bit better if the material is kind of stiff and has less memory. Exactly. So what about the length of the leader? How much do you recommend for a beginner to put on?
So at the moment my setup is a fly line first, just in case I see a lot of rises and I don't have my dry fly set up. And I can just quickly take off my mono, put the fly line through the guides and start dry fly fishing. Then I have around 10 to 15 meters of mono. I want to have enough of the mono so that I can cast the different distances. And once it gets short, maybe I've cut a little bit in because I've got a cut in my mono, then I need to reapply that again. But usually 10 to 15 meters is enough for a day's fishing.
Very good. So what comes next obviously is the sighter, as we call it in Euro nymphing. There are several options. You can use classic sighter material, or on a white mono like this, you can use something like a marker, for example, the Adams side marker. Let's talk a little bit about the tippet. How do you attach the tippet to the mono nymph line?
So you can either attach your tippet to your mono line straight with a knot, or you can use a tippet ring. I would suggest that for beginners, tippet rings are actually easier.
Yes.
But just make sure that it's a small one, not a massive one.
Exactly. And what about the tippet? Is there a kind of rule of thumb for the length?
I usually use an arm's length and a little bit more, so just over a meter. This usually covers most depths.
Okay. And I've seen that here you use 2 different nymphs. What about the distance between the 2 of them?
Yeah, so I'm using 2 at the moment, but it's important to check whether the fishery allows that, because some fisheries just allow 1. I have them a foot and a half between.
Yeah, something like maybe 30 centimeters.
Yeah, perfect. And I have in this case, I have the heavier one on the point and the lighter one on the dropper. Some people like the other way around in certain situations as well.
Yes, but for beginners, maybe it's easier for you guys if you put the heavy one on the point end, because it gives you a little bit more feel for the depth of the river. Exactly. It's a little bit more difficult if you put it the other way around. Also the strike detection, etc. is a little bit more difficult. Okay, so Marina, nice setup. I think there's not much that you need to get started.
I have one last tip.
Yeah, please, go.
So I learned this really cool tip last summer, where you can basically put your drag on slightly when you're walking, and with your, reel it in a little bit so there's a bend in the tip, and then attach your dropper fly to one of the guides and make sure that it's nice and stretched out, because when you're walking, it doesn't go wrap around your rod, which is super annoying, and it's happened all the time to me. So this is a very handy tip.
I didn't know that one. Thanks a lot. Okay, enjoy your nymphing. Have fun on the water. Thanks, Marina. And
Tight lines.
Yes, tight lines.